In 2016, the UK contributed €20 billion to the EU budget, but received only €7 billion in return. This stark financial imbalance set the stage for one of the most consequential political and economic decisions in 21st century Europe. And that is the Brexit referendum.
Brexit
referendum.
Which resulted in 52% of the UK voting to leave the EU. Although the referendum passed in 2016, the UK did not officially leave the EU until January 2020. As we examine the aftermath of Brexit, we uncover a landscape of unexpected winners and losers. From Germany's increased trade with China to the UK's decline in exports, the repercussions of this historic vote continue to reshape the economic map of Europe and beyond. Germany's growing trade with other EU countries was one of the most important changes in the post-Brexit world. Exports from Germany to other EU nations increased by an impressive 16.8%, which more than made up for any losses that might have come from the decrease in trade with the UK. This demonstrated that Germany was able to use its existing EU relationships to compensate for the problems caused by Brexit. Even more impressive was Germany's rise in exports to China. German exports to the world's second largest economy increased by a remarkable 20.8%, and because of this, Germany became a key player in the region. The fact that Germany's trade has grown overall since Brexit contradicts what most economists thought would happen. Many economists thought that after Brexit, some European economies would slow or stop growing, but Germany's performance has proven to be quite the opposite. This unexpected German advantage is very different from how the UK economy has fared since Brexit. Germany has been able to change its directions and grow, but the UK has had a much harder time keeping its economic standing. Different paths of these two economic giants raises important questions about the long-term effects of Brexit, which have not been uniform throughout Europe. This is clear when we look at the UK's economic problems. The story of Germany's unexpected economic advantage is a powerful contrast to the problems the UK is experiencing. This shows how complicated and unpredictable global economic relationships are, particularly after a huge economic and political shift like Brexit. Before Brexit, many within the UK government boasted of the big plans for economic growth, and said that leaving the EU would make trade more flexible and would open up new economic opportunities. The plan was based on the idea that new trade deals would more than make up for any losses that stemmed from leaving the single EU market. This hopeful outlook, however, did not come to fruition. Since Brexit, trade between the UK and EU has dropped significantly. Based on estimates from the London School of Economics, trade with EU countries could decrease by about 1/3 over the next 10 years. Exports from the UK to Germany are a clear example of this decrease in trade. Before Brexit, the UK sent a healthy €90 billion worth of goods to Germany. Post-Brexit, however, this number has dropped to less than €80 billion. The fact that this drop happened so quickly shows how difficult it will be for UK companies to keep their European market share after Brexit. Not all industries in the UK have been affected by the new trade barriers in the same way. Some industries have been hit harder than others. One example is the agriculture and food processing industries, which have had a difficult time adjusting given the increase of checks and customs. In the same way, the financial services industry, which used to be a big part of the trade between the UK and EU, has been struggling since it lost passporting rights, which forced many companies to move their operations out of the UK and into other EU countries. In addition to these problems with trade, the UK has also had major problems with the job market. The end of free movement between the UK and EU has made it very difficult to find workers in fields that used to heavily rely on EU workers. It has been particularly difficult for UK companies to fill jobs in the agriculture and hospitality industries. Even though many people and politicians have tried to make Brexit work, the decision to put up trade barriers with the EU has clearly hobbled the UK economy. So far, the UK's efforts to acquire trade deals outside of the EU has not been enough to make up for the trade it has lost with the EU. This imbalance makes people wonder what Brexit will mean for the UK's economy in the long run. In Northern Ireland, which is a part of the United Kingdom, but is not situated on the mainland, the economy there has its own unique characteristics, which have made things even more complicated post-Brexit. Due to these new post-Brexit complications, a quote-unquote Northern Ireland Protocol has been put into effect, which has brought about its own set of problems and challenges. Let's look at how those have played out recently. The UK, as a whole, has been affected by Brexit, but Northern Ireland has been hit even harder. Northern Ireland now finds itself in economic limbo due to it being part of two different customs territories. The Northern Ireland Protocol was an important part of the Brexit withdrawal agreement. Its goal was to keep the EU single market together and avoid a hard border on the island of Ireland. With this deal, Northern Ireland can stay in the UK's customs territory while still being able to move goods freely in the EU single market. The protocol also outlines how to handle the special economic circumstances on the island of Ireland in a post-Brexit world. For example, it keeps the common travel area between Ireland and the UK open, and it also allows people from the north and south of Ireland to work together in areas like tourism and agriculture. Although the protocol was intended to make things run more smoothly, it actually has made things quite complicated. For example, complicated customs checks for goods coming from Great Britain to Northern Ireland have made businesses and other stakeholders angry. Businesses that cross the Irish Sea have had to wait longer and pay more because of these extended customs checks, which are meant to make sure that the EU rules are being followed. The resulting problems in supply chains have had a real effect on the economy of Northern Ireland, with many businesses finding it hard to adjust to the new rules. There has been a big change in trade between Northern Ireland and Great Britain because of the protocol. Reports say that regulatory barriers and customs checks have made it more expensive for businesses to buy goods from Great Britain. People are worried about Northern Ireland's long-term economic prospects and its ability to keep strong business ties with the rest of the UK because of this change. The protocol has caused not only economic tensions, but also political tensions. Unionist groups in Northern Ireland are especially worried that the protocol will make it harder for them to live in the UK. This political aspect makes it an already tough economic situation even more difficult, which could hurt businesses and investment confidence in the region. To solve these ongoing problems, the UK and EU came to an agreement in March of 2023. This agreement is known as the Windsor Framework. By creating green and red lanes for customs processing, this new plan aims to make it easier to check goods from Great Britain into Northern Ireland. Under this system, goods staying in Northern Ireland use green lanes for pre-registered trusted traders. These lanes require little paperwork and don't require regular checks. On the other hand, goods coming into the EU single market are sent to red lanes, where they are checked by customs. It's a step in the right direction to fix protocol problems, but it remains to be seen how well it will solve the real economic and political problems that Brexit has caused on the island of Ireland. Significant changes have occurred in European economies since Brexit. The European Union has shown amazing flexibility in responding to the UK's decision to leave. Some EU countries have changed the way they trade with each other to make up for the loss of the UK as a major trading partner. For example, Germany's exports to other EU members has grown significantly in response to Brexit. The EU's economy has been strong and growing in many areas, which is very different from the UK's. There has been a clear redistribution of jobs across EU cities in the financial services industry. Frankfurt, Paris, and Dublin have become big winners because of this change. They are now attracting financial institutions that moved their operations from London to keep access to the EU single market. Moving financial services to these cities has not only helped their economies, but it has also made the EU a stronger global financial hub. Because of Brexit, there have also been big changes to the EU budget. Since the UK left, the other member states have had to make bigger contributions to make up the difference. Germany, which has the biggest economy in the EU, has taken on much of this extra financial burden. But the EU has been able to keep its finances stable by increasing its contributions and redistributing its budget in strategic ways. Because the world economy is changing, the EU has been working hard to make new trade and economic partnerships. The goal is to expand trade beyond the UK and make the EU's trade relationships stronger around the world. The bloc has sped up talks with a number of countries and regional groups in order to find new business opportunities for EU companies and make up for any losses that might come from Brexit. Overall, the EU's economic performance since Brexit has been marked by flexibility and strategic pivoting. Even though some sectors have struggled, the bloc as a whole has shown much economic resiliency. It's clear that the EU has not only dealt with the initial shock of the UK's departure, but it has also set itself up for continued growth and influence in the world economy. The difference between the EU's economic path and the UK's problems shows how complicated and far-reaching Brexit will be for both sides of the Channel. It's clear that unexpected results have stemmed from Brexit. The EU has been incredibly strong while the UK has been dealing with big trade losses and a lack of workers in key sectors. At first, many thought that the German economy would be hobbled in the wake of Brexit, but instead, it has done very well, growing its trade with China and the EU. Moving financial services around in EU cities like Frankfurt, Paris, and Dublin is another example of how the economy is changing in the post-Brexit world. These cities have taken advantage of the UK's decision to leave by attracting businesses that used to be London-based. This has strengthened the EU's position as a global financial hub. The long-term effects on economic relations between the UK and the EU are still unknown. New data showing that 59% of UK citizens now want to rejoin the EU suggests that future relations may change as political sentiments continue to evolve. Simply put, if you want to understand how complicated modern global economics is, and how political decisions can have far-reaching economic consequences, look no further than Brexit.